Good morning, Opteck traders. This is your host, Don Kingsley, coming to you live from Cyprus at Opteck headquarters. Today's date, September 4th, 2014. Quite a day today, as we see 15 major announcements on Forex Factory. Quite a few that I'm going to talk about today, as well as some interesting highlights in terms of fundamental analysis. First, let's talk about Forex Factory. We have, looks like, a few announcements for the British pound coming up today. Asset purchases, I think this is incorrect time, I believe, at 12 o'clock East, 12 o'clock GMT. So you can see at 12 o'clock, coming up at 12 o'clock, we have British pound asset purchase facilities as well as bank regs and rate statements for the British pound, followed by minimum bid rates for the euro. But more importantly, the U.S. dollar announcements are the key today. We have non-farm employment change, very, very important, because anything above 218,000, we're going to have a positive effect on the U.S. dollar. Later on, also trade balance for the Canadian dollar. Also, ECB press conference, so President Draghi of the ECB is going to be speaking in regards to quantitative easing in order to prevent deflation from occurring in the Eurozone. Later on today, though, we have trade balance and unemployment claims, as well as non-manufacturing PMI. These announcements, if we see positive results, are going to impact the dollar very, very strongly. So let's take a look at the fundamental analysis and go over what's been going on around the world. So we have energy futures have been dropping across the board, as and a lot of that has to do with speculation of the end of peak driving season in the United States. Refinery maintenance is going to hurt demand, and overall, crude oil is down 3%. You can see on the Bloomberg here, crude oil WTI is at $94.70. On the supply side, however, the market will remain bearish in the short term. Gold and silver had an 11-week low yesterday, but gold has now bounced back up. This is a sign, though, of a very strong economy, as it tends to reduce demand for metals, precious metals, when we have a strong economy. That's a typical result. We could see a bounce back as festivals in India are going to be purchasing lots of gold for and jewelry as well. And also, because of what's been going on in the Middle East and Ukraine, we're going to see more gold buying as a haven for fluctuating currencies. Moving on, the Australian economy has expanded slower than expected at 0.5% and forecasted at 0.4% quarterly. GDP annualized at increased 3.1% year on year. Following along with what's going on with the Ukraine, President Obama of the United States met with the President of Estonia yesterday and spoke at a press conference regarding to how they're going to handle the situation in Ukraine, as well as what to do with ISIL or ISIS, or the main terrorist group that's been very active in Iraq. And I quote, Obama said, "The objective is clear, to destroy ISIS." And they're going to be putting more military forces in those regions, specifically in Iraq. They're going to protect, obviously, diplomatic assets there. And also, President Estonia, in regards to Russia and the crisis in Ukraine, mentioned that Russia had violated the 1997 NATO agreement, and that is a major point that he's going to be using as far as speaking with 60 major leaders today at a NATO summit in Wales. This is very, very huge. They're talking about a potential ceasefire in Ukraine. This could be very, very interesting because Putin has been fighting a shadow war, basically by saying he's not involved. Russia is not a party in this conflict. It's simply between the separatists and the government forces. However, we know that Putin tends to be very, very sly. He's a very sly fox, so we're seeing a clear sign from him that he's not going to admit that Russia has any involvement with this conflict, and Russia is not willing to come to the table and agree to any type of Ukrainian NATO relationship. He's going to insist that Russia is no part of it, and that anything that the separatists do is not tied to Ukraine. What's interesting is if you go on Bloomberg and you search for what's going on right now in the Ukrainian conflict here, you can see on a visual map why this is very important, not only to just the overall sovereignty of Ukraine, but in a more deeper economic level, we can see that there are many pipelines that extend into Ukraine from Russia, at least 8 or 9, if not 10. Let's take a quick look. Here is pipelines. If we take a look, you can see how many pipelines go from Russia through Ukraine into Europe. So if this ceasefire is not established, we could see oil prices and gas prices go up at the pump for our European friends very, very soon. So this NATO summit is very, very important to establish a potential ceasefire in order to prevent any type of economic disaster that could unfold as a result of this conflict. Also, in regards to President Draghi and the ECB, we're seeing that Draghi still believes that there's more liquidity needed to create quantitative easing to prevent deflation. And so they're going to implement more fiscal tools to help establish that. Another thing for the future, we have down the line on September 18th, Scotland is going to vote to potentially secede from the UK. And this would have a very, very strong impact if this was a yes vote. However, it's very, very unlikely as a result of the fact that Scotland would have to maintain its own currency, because if it was still maintaining at the British pound, however, there was no political or monetary connections, then that would be very, very troubling for the British pound and for the UK overall. So it's unlikely that Scotland will secede from the UK, but still this is going to have an impact on the British pound. It's going to be very, very volatile for the next 2 weeks. So I would keep in mind, traders, if you're going to trade on the British pound, be wary of that. Last but not least, unemployment rate tomorrow for the United States coming out. Very, very important announcement. If we see anything less than 6.1%, we're going to have a very, very strong impact on the U.S. dollar. It's going to increase the value, and we'll see Euro-U.S. dollar go through the floor, as well as potentially gold drop as well as the U.S. dollar gains strength. Please, folks, remember to share and like our market reviews with your friends and fellow traders. For now, take care. September 4, 2014. This is your host, Don Kingsley, signing off. Happy trading.